Hello, everyone. The title says itself. Um, this talk came about as we did some internal lookup into what other cloud providers there is out there and what opportunities we have at Kamstrup. And what kind of happened was that we found out there wasn't that much collective info looking at the European vendors. So this is an attempt to try and fill that gap. Try and take notes if you want to criticize it later. There's a lot of info out there and it's hard to come by. So, short about me, I'm Kim. I work at Kamstrup as a platform engineer. And let's just jump into it. So, without going too specific into our needs and why we looked into this, like there's many needs in this day and age where we look into European clouds. A lot of you might be here because of the certain geopolitical reasons. But there's also other value proposition that we find from the different cloud providers, like cost and contract reasons. Ecosystem is suddenly starting to be way more mature, so now it's a more viable option. But why you're here isn't maybe the most important thing, because we all kind of need a working cloud provider for the basic features to make us all come to the same event again and again, hearing about some Kubernetes. First, please look at the other vendors. We are a bit Azure today already, I will admit that. They've been around for years. The one we want to focus about here is Hesna, UpCloud, OVH Cloud, and T-Cloud Public. You might formerly know them from being Open Telecom Cloud and Scaleway. I added in when they were founded to kind of showcase how long they've been. It came about because somebody asked, "Oh, is this a new cloud? I just heard about this, Hesna." No. So the first thing we want to be able to provision a Kubernetes cluster. This is the type of people we are here often. For that, we need some primitives. The one I want to quickly highlight here and focus on is Terraform and Cluster API, and then a little bit about others. I hope there's some in this crowd that maybe is not the most technical people. Can I see hands if somebody haven't tried Terraform yet? That was the wrong way to ask. Oh my god. So we all know Terraform is the one that hasn't tried Cluster API yet. Okay, there we have more crowd. Thank you. So I can make you all feel safe in that Terraform, Tofu, is supported by all of them. Most by the vendor themselves. Hesna is a bit on a wildcard since it's more of a community effort to get Kubernetes up and running. I've showcased them. All of them has their primitives in Terraform modules. But what we're interested in, do they have a primitive to deploy fully clusters? Because what we see for them and what we often is looking at is managed opportunities. We can go out and build our own unmanaged cluster, but it's rarely what our companies are interested in us doing. Cluster API is a bit of a sad one. It's important to note that the big three hyperscalers do support it, and it does make it easier to treat your cluster more the same when you treat a pod like a cattle, not pets. I do hear when I talk to them and when you talk to the vendors out there that they are mentioning Cluster API, but it's hard to find more than what Scaleway is doing and then what Hesna is doing, which is not them, but a third-party vendor, which kind of fit into what we see with Hesna, which is community-made, or in this case, some other company who has done the effort of managing the lifecycle of a Kubernetes cluster. Of course, something we also has to look at what else option is out there. We need to solve this problem. Talos, of course, works on most places where you can deploy a VM. There is a thing about how do you integrate with the load balancer, how do you integrate with some of the networks layers in a Talos setup. But they have documentation for a lot of them. Another, if you are like, oh, they all have Terraform, and I like to use Kubernetes resources, Rapid in Crossplane. I am a bigger fan of Cluster API, but I'm just saying it's a very good measure to get there. Platform capabilities. Of course, running a cluster It's an easy feat. We can all put up some VMs and install a Kubernetes cluster. But it's integration into the rest of the cloud provider that makes it a viable product for a company. The way I like us to view this is more like, is there a native path or is there a possible path? A good example that you're gonna not see that much of in European cloud vendors is secret management. I'm coming more into details to it later, where you will see that you probably have to bootstrap your own secret store to manage where they're stored, unless you use subs or something like that, because it's not all of them that have it. So we might have to go in and think, okay, we don't get this from our vendor, but we need this capability. And what else capability can we fill out in that need? I like to go about some of the most common things that we see again and again, that when you're in the enterprise, you're going to ask, oh, well, do we have this feature yet? Basic is authentication. This is a bit of a sad one. So if you say that you have an identity provider, then for many of you out there, it is already Azure or Google Cloud or AWS that is also your identity provider. Or sometimes you have your own identity provider. With these, many of the European cloud vendors, also in general, other American cloud vendors, they are not integrated. So you have to learn to live with the fact that your cloud is no longer necessarily your identity provider. It's a nice decoupling in some way. The bigger problem is that, sure, a lot of them give single sign-on, so you can go to the web interface with your own company login, but not many of them necessarily have an automatic way to sign on to the API or the CLI with a single sign-on. Sure, you can fetch an API key and store that somewhere, but I'm going to give it a dump because it's not automatic. Then in our case, of course, what we also care about is the Kube API, authenticating up towards that. Again, what we're used to from the hyperscalers is just to use their identity provider, and it all works. In many of these, some of them integrate, so you can use their login system. Some of them kind of make you not able to add your own identity provider to the cluster, because that is a flag set on the Kube API server. When you have a managed Kubernetes, they manage the Kube API server. Big shout out to OVH Cloud for actually exposing the OIDC configuration flag, which means that when you deploy the managed offering, you can just say, oh, here is my key cloak, or I use Entra ID still, and you can use that to authenticate to your Kube API. I had a quick talk with UpCloud, that they have this big red cross on them, and they say they have it on their roadmap. So soon, trademark. A big also note that with Scaleway and Keystone's, T-Cloud integration is that since they don't themselves have good support for jumping into their authentication system from your IDP and then to probably Kube API, then their Kube API's authentication be locked into their ecosystem might be a bit of a drawback for you. Yeah, then we have another one. This is also a bit of a criticism. So for those who have tried to work with workload identity, so for those who haven't, it's basically that your developer says that, hey, I would like to call my cloud provider's APIs, and I don't want to manage a secret all the time. And you don't want to go out and rotate that secret and break their things all the time. So what if you could take your Kubernetes token, give it to an exchange and say, give me a token that works for this cloud. That is OEDC Federation. Again, all the hyperscalers is just there. It kind of went into the authenticating with APIs that I showed before. They are not really there yet. I should actually edit the one where I mentioned Hessner might have something. There was a false positive. Somebody tried to make a wrapper. I see I forgot to edit that one. So it's, if you manage your own, that's one. Yeah, if you manage it yourself, then you might be able to build something, but in the managed offering, no. Another thing we keep seeing, in our case, for example, we are in a regulated industry. So when something come out, when we get asked, have it been hacked? That require audit logs. Even the big hyperscalers is a bit troublesome sometimes with the Kubernetes APIs audit logs. In the fact that they are very set in how the policy and what they audit. But the most important thing is, can you get it out? I haven't gone too much into pricing here. Be aware of pricing of getting that out if you have to go through their logging service. But again, one of those things where you start to build something, you start to set it up, and then suddenly security come by and have a demand for you, and you can't solve it because it's part of the managed offering. So figure it out beforehand. If this is your needs, it's a deal breaker for compliance for some. Of course, also the account activity log is more like, do the cloud provider provide some kind of API for calls into their system? Because you might, if you have a big cloud provider, you might probably not be only be one person that just call into the API, so you also need audit logs on there. There's also, again, something that a compliance reason, a little hack you might be able to do. I haven't written this because it's very hack. If you can make sure that only a control cluster is the owner of an API key to a cloud provider, big if, then you can use the Kubernetes audit log as your pseudo audit log for the API system. But then you need to be able to prove that it's only Kubernetes that called your API, and then you're very automated. Congratulations. Observability. Observability, when I say this, is basically all the logs and data. Like, sure, you can ship it out to the world and store it there. But a lot of people, when they pick one vendor, want to also have the observability taken care of because it's a lot of data. It's hard to manage. Most of them have some kind of offering, different level of integrations. What you might also experience when you get into the more European cloud providers is that some of them is kind of an add-on product on the side where they could just send log to, and some of them is fully integrated. You might see on some other cloud vendors. Scaleway has some very tight integration where it's very far into the entire solution. That is a plus if that is your one vendor, especially because it's just taken care of. It can be a drawback if you're like, oh, I need to aggregate from multiple cloud providers, because then you anyway have to go into exporting out to something, and then suddenly you have a jump layer in between where you jump from Scaleway and out into another system. It's not to say what is good or bad. It's just to say it's the reality of the constraints you have to work with. Secrets. So as I hinted to before, where do we store secrets? And there might be people out there that say subs and just public private key and into GitHubs. Lifecycle management of a lot of deployment doesn't necessarily fit with secrets management in a lot of cases, so we need a secret store. Here, I kind of just say, look at OpenBOW, or go out and find a commercial offering that makes it work. If you have a secret manager where you can authenticate, let's say with a federated identity or some way, then you now have another secret to manage. You let's say we use OVH clouds or the T-Cloud Public's secret management system. Cool, in order to authenticate to them, you need a secret. Where do we store that? How do we manage that? So we kind of just move the problem around of that initial secret. If you don't have something like federated identity that kind of when you look down on all the layers, just relies on the basic trust store and that you already distribute for certificates. It's one of those that take you by surprise if you're not aware. Then DNS. You all know that what we want to do is see our developer deploy a gateway API, if you've migrated to that yet. And then poof, DNS records appears on the right place and points to the right IP. And that, of course, requires us to integrate with DNS providers. Let's assume, again, that here we're looking into the cloud provider also wants to be our DPS provider. Most of them luckily do have some way for you to use external DNS. If you know of other offerings you would use, I would like to know it. They have become an industry standard for Kubernetes in our community. UpCloud, the reason I put an exclamation mark out there is that they have partnered with Bunny DNS that does have some community-made webhook stuff, but they haven't really shown how that integration looked like in any way. So it should work when it gets there in summer. So again, one of those soon roadmap trademark. Open cost. So another thing that keeps happening again and again, and this is both my current company and previous company, is that some development teams start to use a lot of resources. And if you say, please stop, they don't. But if you say, here's how much it cost us, and it's now your cost center is on, it's a very powerful thing. It's also the general just knowing what we spend our money on. So to give some context, I have chosen here to give open cost as an example and give some insight on that. The takeaway is actually, when I made this originally, T-Cloud Public was the only one that had a yes. OVH Cloud got it added recently, so I had to update this earlier, last week. I also noticed that Scaleway have the source code in open cost, but no documentation. So your mile may vary. So a big missing thing is, if you just have the integration, you can see this one has used so many resources. We expect it to cost this and this, and use this and this much. But if you can't reconcile it with the cloud cost, which means looking at your API of the cloud vendor, seeing how much this is actually cost on my billing, you can't correlate that properly in a safe way, in a guaranteed way. OVH Cloud say they're working on it. I think this might seem a bit gloomy with all the red X's there, but I think a bigger takeaway is when I started with within the last couple of months or something, it has grown. So they are aware that they need to get there. A quick mention, I know I talked to Terraform and I talked to you about Cluster API. Some of them do have offerings where they're kind of your one-stop shop for control planes and managing clusters. And then they have services where they can deploy clusters in other cloud providers. That is an option you could go. If what you're trying to solve is not vendor login, then it's very nice to have a curated experience. OVH Cloud has some series that's based on a range of services. Scaleway have something called Cosmos. Valid options. There is also the, hey, if you want to be multi-cloud, then we can build ourselves. The tools are out there. If you want to, if you control your primitives like ingress, egress, storage, load balancer, the authentication stuff, then the tools to do cross-cluster networking across cloud vendors like K8, GB, and Submariner, Scuba, Istio, I hope I pronounced them all right there. They're all out there. They are free to use. They are well documented. So the primitives that many cloud providers provide is built on the open source tooling that is available. The thing you just have to be very sure about internally is that, is this where you bring most value when we apply resources to this problem, or should we go with a curated experiences if our need is to go across different vendors? Okay, so let's comparison with the hyperscalers as I showed before. As you see, what the hyperscalers have very much in common is they have all of these base features. They also have way more people to rate them. But the European cloud vendors, they are getting there. It was a bit hard who to give a red and what to give a green, but it's I say it's again last year it was way more red. So it's good to see the progress, and I kind of hope that next year this can be a 5-minute quick session update about all the greatness they've built since last time. So now I blabbered about a lot of different things, technologies and tools to look into, but what can we do next from here? I think the biggest one is thinking capabilities, not products. And when I say products, I'm like, you need Azure workload identity. No, you need federated identity. That's the capability you need. If you can get through some of the product name in the different vendors do, and get down to what is capabilities and get that be the conversation, then you are far ahead in actually looking across cloud vendors, because often what happens is you start to talk in product naming, and then you're already locked in. Planning machine identity story now. That's what I mentioned before. If you have some breaking needs, then either host it yourself or just say that the developers should not just call to the API system, or set up an open BAU to manage your secrets and rotate them, and then BAU can be federated. Verify orders logs, mentioned that already in quick details. GitOps is your portability layer. I did mention about how you can't get all that identity stuff into some of the Kubernetes APIs, but if you have a very solid GitOps system where it's a rarity that people go in directly and call the Kube API to not even your operations department, then it's way more viable to just take any vendor, because your stuff comes from GitOps. You need a certain level of monitoring tooling internally, since you can't just say Kube API, here we go, since then you need to manage access to that, but it is invested at GitOps. Validate your cost model, which is, again, if you need to allocate it, be sure you can allocate it. I'm in a company where we need to say which team use what, because there are so many different products. You might be in a more simple structure where you just say, well, we just give a node pool or set of machines to this department, and then we manage it that way. So it's, even though I talk highly about the open cost, there is workarounds. It's just going to limit what you can do technically. And last, Jack, try one. If you're in a company right now, or in a home lab, doesn't matter. I can say there's other good reasons to get started. I will always say, if you have a lot of development workloads or a lot of build workloads you manage yourself, look into these vendors. They are very competitive, some of them on the price. Of course, if you're in that less price interested and more in GPU interested, a lot of them also have offerings on that. So also give them, go in and push them a bit, suggest them. They have what you need. So it's like, when we look at all this, the ecosystem, it is there. It's getting better and better. It's just like, is there some gaps? Yes. Can we crush over those gaps? Hopefully, likely. Yeah. That is in short of it. Any questions? I think that's a positive thing. It was very clear, understandable. Thank you very much for your time, and give me feedback.